Today's lesson is Travelers Weigh In. Should hotels stop offering single-use toiletries? Hi, everybody. I'm Roger.
And I'm Mike.
And the big question for today is, should hotels stop offering single-use toiletries or disposable toiletries? And yes, that's the question that we started to answer last time we were asking people's opinions. We heard from Emily, James, and Sophia. 2 of them were for this idea, and 1 was against.
Exactly right. They kind of cited some of the common things you would expect. Some people agreed that, yes, having all of these single-use containers, often made of plastic, and disposing of them every day, replacing them also every day, does have a big environmental impact, especially when you think of all the different hotels that operate in the country and the limited space that we have for garbage and landfills and things like that. But other people, like James, the business traveler who stays in hotels very frequently, he finds it inconvenient. He likes to go to the hotel and know that there's shampoo and toothpaste and a toothbrush and a comb there for him. So he finds it a bit inconvenient. And he also thinks it might be kind of an excuse for the hotel to just offer less while still charging you the same rates. The hotels will save a lot of money this way. And then we had Sophia, and she says that in Europe, in Northern Europe, she cited the country of Sweden specifically, they have biodegradable options for the containers, which is a great idea, but of course they might cost a little more. And also, we don't know if in Taiwan they would have companies that could provide these types of biodegradable containers. So a lot of very interesting ideas. Some, you can kind of expect, some with some. Now we're going to turn our attention to a couple other people. We have 5 people today. We're going to start with Ben, who is a lawyer. Let's listen to what he thinks about the government banning the use of single-use disposable containers.
Ben, 50, lawyer. Taiwan's new rule is a step in the right direction. I've seen similar policies in Japan, where some hotels now offer toiletries only at the front desk upon request. It's not any less convenient, and it's much better for the environment.
Olivia, 37, teacher. What about travelers who forget their toiletries? It seems unfair to have to pay extra at the hotel counter, and I can guarantee that I'm not the only one who feels this way.
大家好，第一部分介绍名词 counter， 它的意思是柜台。例如 Sandra waited at the counter for an employee to come over. Sandra 在柜台等一名员工过来。或者George stepped up to the counter and placed his order. George 走到柜台点餐。下一个看到这个动词 guarantee 表示保证、担保，也可以是确保或是使点点点必然发生。例如 I guarantee that you will love the new dress I bought for you. 我保证你会爱上我为你买的新洋装。或是 The store guaranteed that their prices were the lowest in town. 该店保证他们的价格是城里最低的。另外补充这个字当名词的用法。造个句子 I decided not to buy the product when the salesman couldn't give me a guarantee that it would last. 当销售员不能保证该产品的使用寿命时，我决定不购买。另一句 Is there any guarantee that I'll get my money back if I don't like this product? 要是我不喜欢这个产品，有任何保证我可以把钱拿回来吗？
Okay, so now we're going to hear from Ben, and he is 50 years old, and he is a lawyer. He is an attorney. He practices law. He says, Taiwan's new rule is a step in the right direction. So here, a step in the right direction just means it's the right thing to do. He's in favor of this new rule or this new regulation. He supports it. He goes on to say, I've seen similar policies in Japan, where some hotels now offer toiletries only at the front desk upon request. Okay, so he has seen the example of what they do in Japan. Again, Japan is a very progressive country. They're very clean, they're very tidy, and some hotels there in Japan will offer the toiletries at the front desk, but they will only offer them upon request. You could also say by request. In other words, if you ask for them, they will provide them for you. If you don't ask for them, well, they won't give them to you. They won't be in the room. You'll find them not there. Maybe you're expected to bring your own. When I went to Japan, of course, I'm always used to bringing my own toothpaste and toothbrush and all that kind of stuff. I just got used to that. I don't really expect the hotels to provide that stuff. But in case you have forgotten and you're in Japan, those things are on offer upon request. And he goes on to say, it's not any less convenient and it's much better for the environment. So yeah, you can still get them. It's not really less convenient. It's okay. He thinks it's a good deal and it's good for the environment.
Next, we move on with Olivia. She's 37 and she's a teacher. She starts off with a good question. She says, what about travelers who forget their toiletries? Yeah, absolutely. There's people who pack in a rush, people who are just sort of absent-minded. She says it seems unfair to have to pay extra at the hotel counter, and I can guarantee that I'm not the only one who feels this way. All right, I think we can certainly say that her opinion kind of lines up with James, who we met yesterday, the 42-year-old business traveler. He had a similar kind of point of view. She says it's unfair to have to pay extra at the hotel counter. We used to get this as part of the normal room rate or room charge. Now we have to pay more. And a counter, well, that's basically a service area where you will go in a business and they will have a worker on one side, you'll be on the other side. It's kind of a raised table, a raised working surface. If you go to a store, generally like a convenience store, you'll put your products, your items on the counter, and then you'll pay for it and that kind of thing. Or in the kitchen, when you're standing in the kitchen chopping vegetables, you're chopping it on a counter, right? So it's not to be sat down at, it's to be stood at, but it's that kind of raised working area. So she doesn't want to have to go down to the lobby and do that kind of thing and pay extra. And she can guarantee, she can promise you, trust her, that she is not the only one who feels this way. There are millions of other people who would probably feel kind of irritated and bothered by this, and she just thinks it's kind of unfair.
Yep, she's a teacher, so she probably has lots of fellow teachers who feel the same way. Yeah, when I travel and I pay a price for a room in a hotel, I expect these things. If they don't give them to me, it seems like they're trying to charge me the same amount for less. So she thinks it's a bad deal, and she expects hotels to provide those single-use toiletries. It's highly convenient. Okay, let's move on now to the second part of our lesson for today. We've got an environmental activist by the name of Noah. He's 26. Let's find out what he has to say.
Noah, 26, environmental activist. Hotels need to show responsibility for the environment. Most people care enough to bring their favorite cosmetics with them when they travel, so I don't think it's a major inconvenience to ask them to bring their own soap and shampoo too.
第二部分看到名词 activist， 指行动主义者或是社会运动人士。例如 Daria is an animal rights activist who often speaks out against eating meat. Daria 是保护动物权益积极分子，经常公开反对吃肉。也可以说 As an activist for the environment, Monique has taken part in several protests against pollution. 身为一位环境行动主义者Monique 参与了好几次反对污染的抗议活动。接着介绍名词 cosmetic， 表示化妆品。我们可以说 Joanne hopes this cosmetic product will clear up her skin. Joanne 希望这款化妆品能使她的肌肤光泽无瑕。又或者说 The store sells cosmetics and other beauty products for women. 这家商店销售女性化妆品和其他美容产品。继续看到名词 inconvenience，意思是不便或是麻烦。例如 I'm sorry if this situation has caused you any inconvenience. 如果这个情况造成你任何不便，我很抱歉。再看一个例子 The road repairs will only take 3 days, so the inconvenience is temporary. 修路将只需要3天，所以不便是暂时的。
All right, we are back with the third person for today whose opinion we are going to listen to about this new government regulation banning single-use toiletries. Next, we have Noah. He's 26. He's a young man. He's an environmental activist. So that means he's someone who works with probably a charity or some kind of NGO group, non-governmental organization, to protect the environment. So obviously for him, he's going to be thinking much more about reducing waste and garbage and pollution and things like that. An activist is someone who works for some kind of movement, some kind of political idea. They're often working for other people. It could be a paid job or it could be a voluntary thing like working for a charity or volunteering your time to help out. But basically, he's trying to improve things in society and whatnot. So that's kind of his focus. Maybe Greenpeace or something like that, one of those types of organizations. He says hotels need to show responsibility for the environment. Yeah, this is, of course, something that we'd like to see more businesses or all businesses do. Show some responsibility for the environment, care for the environment now and for future generations, and don't just sort of use nature as a dumping ground for all our human waste. He says most people care enough to bring their favorite cosmetics with them when they travel, so I don't think it's a major inconvenience to ask them to bring their own soap and shampoo too. Well said in a long sentence there, but I think he's probably right. Most people care enough or are careful enough to do something. When you care enough to do something, it shows it's important to you. You'll take time to do it. You'll set aside extra time even if it is slightly convenient because for you it's personally important. So most people do when they pack along with all their clothes and electronics and all the other things that they want to bring with them to have a nice journey. They will care enough or be careful enough or take the time to bring their favorite cosmetics. You don't just sort of leave the house with a few pairs of underwear, socks, a shirt, and a pair of pants and then buy everything else when you're on your journey. Most people don't do that. They bring things from home. And he cites cosmetics as an example. We wouldn't include things like toothpaste and shampoo with cosmetics, but for ladies who travel, and for some gentlemen too, bringing, your makeup, your favorite eyeliner, your favorite lipstick, your favorite hair gel, whatever it might be. People do that, right? They don't just go to the nearest drugstore in every new country and buy everything all over again. They bring all that stuff. So why not bring your toothbrush, your toothpaste, maybe even a little bottle of your favorite shampoo from home? You do it with other things, so why not do it with the things that we used to get for free at a hotel? He says he doesn't think it's a major inconvenience. Something that is inconvenient is not easy to do, or it just kind of makes your life less enjoyable or brings you trouble when you don't really need it. So things that are convenient, of course, are easy to use and kind of save you time as well. That's why we use this word, of course, for stores, convenience stores. An inconvenience store doesn't exist, but an inconvenience store might be one that's very far from your house and is only open for 1 hour a day on Tuesdays or something like that. It's very inconvenient. It's very difficult to get access to. It makes your life more troublesome and brings you problems and slows you down. So he doesn't think this is an inconvenience. This isn't a big problem or a lot of extra trouble to ask people, travelers, tourists who are staying in hotels to bring their own soap and shampoo with them too. I kind of see that point of view.
I can see that point of view as well. While we're on the word inconvenience, of course, as you mentioned, lots of people go to convenience stores. I've heard people say convenient store with a T there. That is a common mistake, and it is understandable because, hey, that store is very convenient. Why don't you call it that? But we call it a convenience store like 7-Eleven or Family Mart or whatever, so don't make that mistake. Here we're talking about a major inconvenience, something that is inconvenient. And yes, indeed, Noah thinks that it's not an inconvenience. It's okay. We can bring our own soap and shampoo, our toothbrush or toothpaste, our own cosmetics. No problem. Okay, let's move on now to the third and final part. We've got two more opinions to hear from. We've got Liam, who is a graphic designer, and we've got Mia, who is a travel photographer. Let's listen.
Liam, 28, graphic designer. I understand the environmental concerns, but not all guests will like this. Taking hotel toiletries home with you is something everyone does. I mean, who doesn't have a drawer full of hotel toiletries in their home? They're like extra souvenirs from your trip. I can't help but feel like we'd be losing something culturally.
Mia, 31, travel photographer. Hotels should be allowed to decide how they provide toiletries. If they want to offer single-use items for free, that should be their choice, not the government's.
第三部分看到形容词 graphic， 它表示图像的、绘图的，也可以是图表的。可以说 I don't like horror films that show a lot of graphic scenes of violence. 我不喜欢那些展示大量暴力画面的恐怖片。
All right, we are back with the last two people who are going to weigh in on this very interesting issue. Again, we have another young person here, Liam. He is a graphic designer, so he works in a sort of creative industry, designing the look of things. Graphics is basically the appearance of things, the things you might look at in a picture or advertising, the way it's laid out, the color they use, the letter size that they use. Anything involving drawing, engraving, lettering, things like that would be someone who is a graphic designer. I'm sure a lot of his time is probably spent designing websites as well, the look of the website, basically the sort of more artistic, creative side of designing things that consumers and customers will interact with. So he says, I understand the environmental concerns, so he is aware that plastic and stuff like that, it creates a lot more pollution that sits in the environment doing bad things for a long time, so he understands all that. But he says not all guests will like this. Well, sure, we've definitely heard from some people who aren't big fans of this new policy. And then he goes on to say, taking hotel toiletries home with you is something everyone does. Oh, okay, well, that is true. I'm not really one of those people, but I know some people do. They certainly like certain brands of soap or shampoo they might get, or maybe just as a souvenir, they like to bring them home with them. So those people, of course, will be a little bit disappointed. He says, I mean, who doesn't have a drawer full of hotel toiletries in their home? Well, I don't, Liam. I can definitely say that. I'm not one of those people, but maybe I'm a rarity. I'm an oddity. Some people definitely do like them. So he's kind of saying, a lot of people like this. And as he mentions, some people take them not just to use them, but as a souvenir.
Exactly. And indeed, I guess I could understand that because sometimes different hotels have different shaped shampoo bottles and stuff like that. So maybe some people collect those sorts of things. So they're like souvenirs from those different hotels. And he says, I can't help but feel like we'd be losing something culturally. So to can't help but do something means that you feel that way anyway. For example, I could say, well, I don't really like Gene, but I can't help but feel sorry for him because his girlfriend broke up with him. So it's something that you just can't help. You can't stop yourself from feeling this way. So he does feel this way. He can't help it. He has to feel this way. Yes, we'd be losing something culturally. Indeed, lots of people like these things and they keep them as souvenirs, even though I don't mind not having them. Okay, let's move on now and find out what Mia has to say. She's 31 years old and she is a travel photographer. She travels to different countries and takes pictures of those exotic places. She says hotels should be allowed to decide how they provide toiletries. So she thinks it should be up to the individual hotels. They should not be controlled by the government.
Interesting point of view. She goes on to say if they want to offer single-use items for free, that should be their choice, not the government's. So he's kind of saying each hotel operator should make this decision on their own, based on their own economics and on their own values, how important they think protecting the environment is. I can see that. It's nice to let people sort of decide for themselves, but that might give the hotels that decide to do this an advantage in the marketplace compared to the ones that are a bit more environmentally responsible and choose not to. I could see how some tourists, or maybe more tourists, would go to the ones where they get these single-use items, but of course those hotels would be polluting more, but also maybe having more successful business, whereas the other ones, being more responsible, might find that their businesses suffer as they lose guests to the hotels that are providing. So I think it makes more sense when we're trying to protect the environment on a broad basis to have these broad rules. But I see her point of view. I mean, you could also say that they could charge for them, and if people are willing to pay, and then maybe some of that money from the hotel can be donated to environmental efforts or something like that. But I think probably the best and easiest and clearest way to sort of set a marker and set regulations is to have this rule apply to all hotels in the country, regardless of what the consumer and what the hotel might be willing to do.
Okay, that brings us to the end of our explanation for today. Let's turn things over now to Hanny.
各位同学大家好，我是 Hanny。 我们来看今天的文法重点。课文第一部分里 Olivia 说了一句 What about travelers who forget their toiletries? 那些忘记带盥洗用品的旅客怎么办？那这边我们来比较 how about 跟 what about 的异同。先来看相同点 ，how about 跟 what about 可以用来提出建议，询问是否考虑其他人事物，询问对方意见，或者是引出新的主题，也就是去表达说什么什么如何呢？你认为点点点怎么样呢？例如I like singing and dancing. How about you? 或者是 What about you? 我喜欢唱歌跳舞，那你呢？再看个例句是 How about going to the beach tomorrow? 也可以说 What about going to the beach tomorrow? 明天去海边玩怎么样啊？好，那我们来看看不同点，就是可以请求对方给你东西，或者是询问对方是否愿意做某事的时候，这时候只能用 How about. 举例来说How about you drive me home and we can talk more on the way? 不如你开车送我回家，我们就可以在路上多聊一点，怎么样呢？好，那我们在用来询问对于某事该怎么处理的时候，只能使用 what about， 就像课文用法。假设我们跟朋友聊到减少塑胶使用，聊到环保牙刷，也许你就突然想到 But what about toothpaste?Toothpaste usually comes in a plastic tube. 但牙膏怎么办啊？牙膏通常都装在塑胶管里，这样就很难避免减少塑胶使用嘛，这样就很难达到减少塑胶使用的目标了。好，那么在课文第3部分 Liam 他说了一句I can't help but feel like we'd be losing something culturally. 我不禁觉得就文化角度来说，我们正在失去了什么。Can't help but 加上原形动词就可以表达忍不住、不禁或是不由自主地做某事。我们也可以用 can't help 加上动词 ing， 像是 She can't help but smile at the photo， 也可以说 She can't help smiling at the photo。他不由自主地对着照片微笑。好，那另外要介绍 feel 当连缀动词，可以表达感到、觉得，也可以表达说事物感觉起来怎么样、摸起来怎么样的意思。那常见的句型是用 feel 加形容词，或者是可以用 feel like 加名词或子句。例如 I feel fantastic， 我感觉好极了。再看一个例句是 Sometimes She feels like nobody cares about her. 有时候她觉得好像没有人关心她。好，那补充一下 feel like 还可以表达想要，后面是接名词或动名词。那这个用法主词通常是人，用来表达某人想要某物或是想要做某事，像是 I feel like a walk， 也可以说 I feel like taking a walk， 我想散散步。再看个例句是 Do you feel like going to a movie?你想看电影吗？好，那么以上今天重点整理，我们回顾今天的单字吧。
Counter. Sabrina is going to ask for help at the customer service counter, which is located near the entrance of the store. Guarantee. I know you're not a big theater fan, but I guarantee you'll like this play because of its exciting plot. Activist. A group of peace activists are expected to hold a protest against the war this Saturday in the city square. Inconvenience. The unexpected repair work being done on the busy road was a major inconvenience for many drivers. Graphic. The magazine cover's graphic design caught my attention with its bold use of colors. Souvenir. Samuel bought some souvenirs, including postcards and keychains, to remind him of his trip to Sydney.
Discussion Starter starts now!
Here's our discussion starter for today. The question is, do you agree with policies preventing hotels from providing free single-use toiletries? Why or why not?
Well, I would have to say, especially after listening to the very interesting opinions in the last few days, I would say yes. I think these policies are a good idea, considering that pollution is still a major, major problem, especially plastic pollution, and many of these containers and objects, like combs and toothbrushes, are often made with plastic, and probably not a recyclable type of plastic as well. So I think, generally, yes, I think these policies are a good idea.
Well, no, I don't agree, because sometimes sometimes hotels provide pretty useful stuff. For example, you can get pretty good shower caps from those toiletries if you travel, and I find those shower caps are very useful in rainy weather. I put them over my bicycle helmet to keep my head dry because there are holes in the bicycle helmet, you know, when water gets in. So those shower caps are very useful, and I can't think of other places to get those shower caps. And also, I think I agree with Mia on this particular point. Yeah, the government should not stick its nose in other people's business. They should let the hotels decide themselves. Well, that brings us to the end of another edition of our program, and please make sure you join us again next time. From all of us here, I am Roger.
I am Mike.
See you next time.